entitled people, a wretched hive of scum and passive aggression. Our first post of the day is entitled, Mother Expects Me to Split My Stimulus Check with My Entitled Sibling. To preface, I just turned 19 years old and my sibling is 20. I wasn't planning on getting a stimulus check due to the fact that I thought I was considered a dependent due to not having a job and such. So I was just living my life, waiting for when I can get my GED and a job. 2 days ago, my mom was cooking herself dinner and I walked into the kitchen to get myself something. She asked if I would be upset if I didn't get all my stimulus check, and she took some of it to pay for my GED and driver's education courses. I said that I would be a little upset. Okay, why would you be upset if you had to pay for some of your own things, Mr. 20-year-old who is living in your parents' house? Come on, Redditor. I wanted to make the decision for myself to feel a little bit like an adult. You want to feel a little bit like an adult, move out of your parents' house. That might work. And I thought I wasn't even going to get one. Next thing I know, she came back in from her car, angrily handed me my check, and said that I better be responsible with it. Now call me unreasonable, but that was a little rude. But me being me, I just brushed it off, made myself dinner, and deposited it through my bank's mobile app. Yay, I got money for important adult things, right? Wrong. It's been 2 days now, and my mother just told me in front of my entitled sibling and dad that I should split my check with my entitled sibling. Now, I like to think I'm a pretty generous person with a big heart. I love helping people out and all, but my sibling is the least responsible person I've ever met. They spend all their money on weed and knickknacks with no purpose, especially since I need to spend the money on important things that will help me move out of this hellhole. I said no. After this, my mother went on to bed. She said goodnight to my father and to my sibling, but not me, purposefully. It was one of the most petty things I've ever witnessed. My sibling has apparently been complaining about not getting a stimulus check and is especially upset that I did, calling it unfair. I think it's perfectly fair because I didn't decide the rules for everything. I shouldn't have to shell out $600 to a person that's going to spend it on illegal things. Am I the one being unreasonable? Should I eat shit and give them the $600? Or should I actually stick up for myself for once and spend it on things I need? Any advice would be appreciated. I mean, obviously, spend it on things you need. But don't get mad that you have to spend it to get a driver's license. This is called being an adult. And it's not as hard as people say. I swear to God. Next time I see, I can't adult today, I'm just gonna jump off a bridge or something. I don't know. I have nothing really threatening I can do. Our next post, entitled neighbor took my mother to court to get primary custody of my mother's dog. Primary custody of a dog? Is that a thing? I mean, I guess it must be, but can you have shared custody of a dog? Like, you get to see Skipper on the weekends, but I get him to rest it a week. I don't understand it. How did this person think this was gonna work? When my mother and her dog moved next door to entitled neighbor, they fell in love with my mother's dog, Max. For about 2 years, the neighbor would come get Max for visits. The neighbor would watch Max if my mother went out of town, or just so they could play with him. The entitled neighbor moved across town and would still call to ask for Max visits. My mother started letting the dog go less and less, but would say yes now and again because of the neighbor's entitled pleading. Just before one of the arranged visits, Max got into a fight with another dog. He seemed okay, but when the neighbor came, my mother said she was worried about letting him go because of the dog fight. Entitled neighbor promises that she would look after Max and make sure he was okay. The next day, the neighbor called my mother and told her that she took Max to the vet because he had a wound on his neck. She also told my mother that she was keeping Max because my mother neglected the dog. My mother was devastated. Mom called the police. They couldn't help because she had agreed to allow the dog to go with her neighbor. My mother had to file a civil complaint. It took 2 months to go to court. The neighbor told my judge that she and my mother had always shared custody of the dog and that she was the most fit dog parent, so she should have the dog. The judge explained that Max was my mother's possession and that the neighbor was to return him immediately. He also said that she was responsible for the vet bill and no, my mother did not have to give her visitation. I can't can't even wrap my mind around how absurd visitation for a dog sounds. That's insane. OP clarified in the comments, it was sadly funny to watch. She brought a photo album into court to convince the judge that Max was part of her family. Ooh, in those 2 months she put together a photo album? That's like some stalker-like behavior directed toward a dog. I don't get this. I think your mom's gonna be turned into a lampshade by your neighbor. Be careful. Another user said, what the cops told you was wrong. Giving permission to take them for a little while is not permission to keep. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the law, but I feel like those cops were just being like, I don't want to deal with this lady. Next post. User Castlefist says, entitled nice guy, thinks my girlfriend should get passed around. What? Reminds me, I've got to visit r/nice guys before too long. When we were about 4 months into the relationship, my then girlfriend got approached by the nice guy. They shared a mutual friend, and he claimed the mutual friend had a crush on her. He then demanded she broke up with me and started dating this friend. Because according to him, I had her for long enough, and she should give him a chance. Unsurprisingly, she told him to sod off. I was also pretty miffed about the whole situation, but not in a position to confront the nice guy. Unbeknownst to the nice guy, the mutual friend was also a friend of mine. So I confronted him about the whole situation. He admitted to having a crush on my then girlfriend, but immediately said he was never planning on acting on it. He respected her choice, our relationship, and me too much to even consider it. He was going to confront Nice Guy about it, though. This is where Nice Guy's true entitlement shines through. Nice Guy claimed he did it to help mutual friend. He said that after they'd gotten together, he'd wait 4 months. Is that the shelf life of a relationship? Then he'd ask mutual friend to break up with her and let him have his turn. Nice Guy figured that since he was such a nice guy and got them together, that would be the least they could do to repay his kindness. Needless to say, none of the parties involved in that plan appreciated it very much. He got kicked out of the friend group he and mutual friend were in, and ostracized by pretty much anyone. He spent his last years at that school a complete loner. Is that like a parental failure? Did you just not explain what relationships were? Like, oh yeah, son, relationships, you just take turns boning someone for 4 months at a time. I guess that's how it works. User High on Drugs had a better idea. That's all just odd. Seems like a lot of extra steps for him. If he just views her as a possession, why doesn't he just ask to borrow her every other weekend and Tuesdays? The whole plan is dumb. The girl just has to not go along with it for it to fail. I mean, there's a lot of ways this plan could have failed. I don't know that it was very well thought out, but he seems to have thought it was pretty brilliant. Our next post comes from user Mary Shelley 1. It's entitled, Coworker says the way I dress makes her self-conscious. I am an essential worker. I work in a factory and I wear a uniform, but I still come in dressed how I normally dress. I love to wear skirts and decorative tights under my ripped jeans, bodysuits, crop tops, etc. I'm pretty slim and petite, so one of my coworkers is the same age as me, 20-year-old female, and she's a bit on the curvier side. She fat. She always comes in wearing sweatpants and baggy sweaters. I've seen her outside work before, and she does put effort into her appearance when she wants to. One day we were changing back into our normal clothes when I caught her staring at me. I asked her if everything was okay, and she just shrugged and walked out without saying anything. Oh, she fat. So I ordered this cute yellow plaid skirt, and since the quarantine, I haven't been able to wear it, so I decided to wear it to work. Walking in, I saw my coworker sitting in the break room talking to some other people. I go over to the table I usually sit and start chatting with some of the coworkers while I put my stuff in its place. One of the guys is this man in his 40s with a daughter close to my age. He said he liked my skirt and might get one for his kid. This caught her attention, and she asked why he would allow his daughter to dress like a sled. It's kind of slipped out, didn't it? This made people stop and stare at her. When she realized what she said, she just got up and walked out of the break room into the locker room. Upset, I followed her in and just saw her changing into her uniform. I asked her why she would say something like that, and all she said is, I'd have no reason to explain myself to you. I told her, well, considering you were talking about me, I think you do. She huffed and said that I'm obviously trying to get people to look at me and expect that every girl has to dress like this. That I was begging for attention and how I made her self-conscious. First off, I don't dress for other people. I dress for myself. I mean, people say that, but how do you look when you're sitting on the couch watching Netflix? If you're wearing your crop top and your plaid skirt while you're doing that, then fine, I'll believe you. But I definitely put clothes on for other people's sake. I basically flipped it on her by saying, well, I don't like the way you dress because you're making people think that girls shouldn't take pride in the way they look. Phew, I guess that was some merited passive aggression.
She says, I don't give a shit what people think about me.
Which I reply with, then why do you care so much about how I dress? Her response was,
because no normal person dresses like that. You look stupid and people think you're a freak.
oh, she fat. She leaves the locker room all smug as if she won this fight, but because of her little outburst in the break room, people started giving her the side eye. She noticed this and now blames me for making people think she's a bad person.
If you wouldn't have dressed like a slut, I wouldn't have called you a slut, and then people would still like me.
Yeah, you sounded like you were a pleasant person before that, too. Now, this last post is a very short one, but a very good one. Well, cringy, whatever measurement of good we use when in this subreddit. Cousin wanted my sister's snowboard. My cousin asking for my sister's snowboard might not be such a big deal, but perhaps waiting until her funeral service has ended would be a little more appropriate. That's a level of tone deaf that not a lot of people achieve in their lifetime, so congratulations. User Faded Design had a similar experience. I actually had a friend as a teenager. Her aunt was trying to manhandle her wedding ring off her finger before they had turned off the machine. She was being kept on it to give her son time to fly in and say goodbye. And this woman couldn't wait until she stopped breathing, even though her hand was swollen. I should note her father was still alive and may have wanted his own wife's wedding ring himself, perhaps. Ooh, man. Well, thank you for joining me on People of Reddit today as we revisit r/entitled people. I'm going to keep branching out and keep coming back every now and then to different subreddits, but why don't you let me know in the comments which subreddits, if any, that I haven't visited yet that you would like me to. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe. But mostly subscribe. You know what? Do what you want.